What is going on, everybody? DJ Minds here. I have the pleasure of hanging out with Mode from Alethium. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So what do you do for or with the Alethium project?
So I've been with Alephium for at least almost 3 years now. And I basically focus on everything that is not development related. Even though I am working closely with the core developers, I just can't code myself, but I have my hands on pretty much everything else.
That's great to hear. So Alethium, 3 years. Is that about its age or?
It started a little bit earlier, I think. So the white papers that covered the core technology being used on Alephium were released publicly in February 2019, so a little bit longer. But the mainnet was launched in November 2021.
It's probably around when I heard of. Okay, so what is Alethium? Like, I want this interview to be for somebody brand new, never heard of the project. What can you tell me about it?
Okay, so Alephium is a layer one blockchain. And I think the vision of Cheng, the founder and original core developers, was really to offer first, it was to show that you could have scalability and programmability without having to compromise, on decentralization, trustlessness, and security. The feeling was like in the pursuit really of programmability and scalability at all cost. We walked a little bit, the industry walked a little bit away of what, attracted people to Bitcoin originally in the first place. And so he took a direction that maybe is a bit, that you don't see a lot of people in industry taking. And he was like, okay, I will evolve the core technology that were first introduced by Bitcoin, because those are the ones that have been the most tested through times, to really offer a scalable and completely different smart contract and DApp infrastructure in the end. And so Alephium itself is kind of a combination of a lot of different innovation to achieve that and offer a true alternative. Because if you look at the industry today, if you're building a DApp or smart contract, I mean, you're most likely building on an EVM or EVM compatible chain, which is great, but it does come with some trade-off, which might not be for the taste of everyone. And there are, of course, a lot of security issues that are being exploited time and time again. And building on different core fundamentals really allows to offer a completely different experience. And this is really what Alephium was about. I can dive a bit into the tech, but I don't want to speak for 10 minutes.
That's fine. Speak as long as you would like. So what problem does Alethium solve, would you say?
I think, that kind of, I would put the core technology of Alephium in kind of three categories of problem that it solves. The first one, of course, is around scalability. So Alephium is a sharded blockchain, which means that in our case, we have multiple chain running in parallel. So that helps increase the throughput of the chain. So right now on mainnet, we have 16 chain running in parallel, and that takes us to 400 TPS, and we can increase the number of, in our case, of group and then of chain to 32 groups, 1,024 chain, and that would take the layer one really well above 10,000 transactions per second. I think, to not dive too deep into the details, but still, what is great about our sharding implementation is because we're building on the UTXO model, we can leverage sharding completely differently from what you've seen in the industry, because it's mainly account-based chain that have been leveraging sharding. If you think like Cadena, NIR, and Ethereum, eventually, once they have a live implementation of sharding. So sharding just means partitioning, right? Or parallelizing, or like this. And the way we use, being UTXO-based, we can use it in a much more lightweight way, meaning that if you are familiar with sharded blockchain and you've ever worked on Cadena, NIR, or any of those chains, you see that sometimes if you transact from an account that is on chain one, on the same chain, you have a normal experience of what you're used to on a blockchain. But then if you're trying to move from an account that is on one chain to the other, then suddenly the experience differs because you have to use a different mechanism. You're suddenly transacting cross-chain, which means that you have kind of a different experience depending on how and where you transact in the network. Because we're UTXO based, the way we use sharding is very different. And no matter where you're transacting, you're always on chain. Because our addresses are not split it by chain, they're split it by group, and they're connected by chain. So no matter what, you're always transacting on chain. The transaction always take one step, and it's always secured by the blockchain itself. So you always have kind of this really classic blockchain experience, no matter where you're transacting on chain. So that makes it really a lot lightweight and not so much different than a single chain blockchain, but while still increasing dramatically scalability. I think then the second step is really everything around smart contract and dApp security. Again, there are not many smart contract ecosystems that are built on the UTXO model. A lot of them are on the account-based model. And on the UTXO base, you have, Cardano, Ergo have some smart contract capabilities. But we took a slightly different approach. So they use the extended UTXO model. We have a little bit of our own model called the stateful UTXO model. And a simple way to see it is that we basically treat the smart contract separately from the token. And because we're UTXO, on the smart contract level, we really have a similar experience that you have, or at least a similar programmability that you see on the account model. Anything that you can code on an account-based chain, you can code on Alethium. But we still retain the UTXO property, which really help address a number of issues. For example, I think you've heard many times that the reentrancy attack on EVM is something that is being exploited times and time again to drain protocol.
Yeah.
Like probably once a week, there is something like this. So this doesn't exist on Alethium. The reentrancy attack is not possible on our virtual machine. Flash loan also isn't available by design, which is also something that doesn't necessarily have to be used with bad intent, but in practice, it's been used a lot for bad intent and really created unfair condition for people evolving in the space. We also, sometimes you have kind of those sandwich attacks on DEX, where people kind of come in between you and you kind of get a very different experience. Again, due to the UTXO model, all of those don't exist. There's also the fact that, again, thanks to the UTXO model, you can really have true ownership of your token, meaning that the tokens, of course, they can still be owned by your smart contract, but they can also be owned by your private key, which means that even once the tokens are on your wallet and owned by your private key, from a contract, nobody can access those assets. Whereas it has happened, again, on EVM chain, that even though the tokens are in your wallet, a bug in the smart contract will impact your ownership of the asset. So there's really a lot of different things that this really created a different paradigm for dApp developers. Because, again, it's just the benefit of being built on different technologies, you have different trade-off. And I think maybe the one that is the last category, I think, and one of the most interesting maybe for your audience is around what we do with proof of work. So we are a proof of work chain, but we have a little twist on proof of work that to try and reduce a little bit the energy consumption of the network. So we have something that we call proof of less work.
Ooh, I saw something about that. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it's not very complicated. So basically, up until a certain hash rate, we're just classic proof of work. So up until then, very simple. And once we reach a certain trigger, which is in our case 1 exahash, suddenly we now become a combination of basically proof of burn and proof of work. So the cost of mining a new block continues to increase. You, as a miner, you still have to increase your computing power. But instead of just paying that cost increase in computing power and then electric consumption, part of it is now paid by burning token upfront. So once you exceed the 1 exahash threshold, as a miner, you now pay still in computing power, a part in computing power, and then a part by burning token. By the time we reach the 1 exahash trigger, I think most miners will be working in pools. I think already today, most of our network is working into mining pool. So this is something that it kind of will be abstract at the mining pool level. So it's not like as an individual miner, you have to worry, like, oh, I need to have ALPH into my wallet to start. If you mine through a pool, this is something that kind of the pools take care of directly for you. But that allows us, if we're ever so lucky to have kind of the network utilization of Bitcoin, the network usage of Bitcoin, we would consume almost 90% less of the electric consumption, energy consumption.
That's a lot less. My goodness.
Yes. But I mean, it's still, of course, that we have to reach a certain point for this to trigger. And a lot of people also like this because it kind of gives some deflationary force into the tokenomics of the project, because then there are some tokens that are burned with every blocks, basically.
So the burning, is that coming from the miner? Like you'll receive the less tokens, or how would that work? Like where's the burning coming from?
The burning is really upfront, because if it comes after, then you haven't increased the cost, right? So what you want is to maintain the cost upfront to mine a new block. Otherwise, you have effectively reduced the security of your network. So it's really something that, as a miner, you would have in the input of your block, of the block. Right now, how it is, because proof of less work is not triggered, a new block is mined, and you basically have the output, which is the mining reward being distributed. And now you will just have to burn Alethium. So if you're single miners, you will have the wallet that you use to mine will need to have some ALPH that you need to be able to burn to be able to mine. But then, of course, once you've done this for one block, you have your mining reward, and then this can be used then to pay to burn for the second block. But again, by the time we reach there, most likely most GPU miners would be mining into a pool. So already today, I think the assumption is like most people are already kind of mining into pools. So this is something that can completely be abstracted at the pool level, that you don't need to have ALPH on your wallet to start mining. Well, it's more like they would average it across people. So if you're a new miner and you start from zero, you don't have to have ALPH to start. Whereas if you were a single miner at that time and you need to have a little bit of ALPH to be able to start mining, to be able to do the first burn. Basically.
So like the solo miner. Okay.
Yes, but that again, I think by that time it's safe to say most of GPU miners wouldn't be solo mining. And if some would be, most likely it's because they would have a pretty big setup, and they might have just their own pool with all of their miners working together. So that's, again, with mining pool software, you could really abstract that part. But yeah.
That's a great explanation. Question. So Asics, do you see that being a thing? I'm personally not against Asics. I do all of it. I do GPU, I do a little bit of CPU, Asics, I'm for whatever. I'm just curious, what do you think the future is for Alethium?
So the thing with Alethium is like we're not ASIC resistant. So that is the thing. I think Cheng, so the founder, the thought is that being ASIC resistant is something that is not something you can maintain over time, meaning you can be ASIC resistant until you're not, and then you have to re-become ASIC resistant. I mean, Monero had to switch their mining algorithm eventually to remain ASIC resistant. So it's really hard, if not impossible, to be truly ASIC resistant. If there's if there's enough financial incentive, someone one day might build an ASICs for your mining algorithm, and it's just how it is. So you can't really 100% prevent it. So The thought was like, okay, we don't want to try and be ASIC resistant because this will be a lot of work to maintain it through time. And I think also in the founder's head on that front is to say, today Bitcoin is the most widely used network. There are ASICs on Bitcoin, and it is working well. So he's not against ASICs coming into Alethium when it happens. It's not necessarily something we're actively pursuing. I think at the stage that we are now, we have a few FPGA. I think, but I could be wrong, but I think right now there's not many. And the ones that are being used, they are maybe 4 times more efficient maybe than the average GPU. Not being a miner myself, I don't know if that's a lot, but it feels like that's reasonable.
It's not much. I think for Caspa, it's like 100 times, some cases 1,000 times more.
From the GPU to the FPGA?
Yeah. No, not FPGA, ASIC. Excuse me, ASIC. Yeah, it's So that's not bad. Okay, 4 times not bad at all.
Yeah, but that's for FPGA. We don't have ASICs now. The hashing algorithm we use on that part is Blake 3. So there are not many other chains that use Blake 3. So, I mean, one day, someone might develop an ASICs for Alethium. And I think, this isn't something we're going to try and prevent, but this isn't something we're really trying to accelerate, or at least it's not. It will happen when when it happens, if it does.
That makes sense. I'll buy one if they have one, an ASIC. I like ASIC mining. I know sometimes some of my audience wants me to just GPU mine, but I like both. I don't mind. And it's good because people will stay on your project, you know. I like that. So you've already mentioned proof of less. Is it less work? Proof of less work?
Yes, proof of less work.
Okay. Alethium bridge launch. What does that mean? I saw that on the website.
Yes, so for the good part of the last year, basically already a bit before, but let's say after the network upgrade we had in March 2023, the full focus of the primary focus of the developers was to build a bridge. So what we did is I don't know if you're familiar with a Wormhole bridge, but this is basically something that allows cross-chain interoperability. And basically this allows us to bridge assets from one chain to another. So specifically, it allowed us to bring stablecoin, for example, to the Alephium ecosystem, because today we're still very young. So for existing stablecoin like USDT or things like this to launch natively into our network, this will take still a bit more time, and we need to be a little bit bigger than this. But because we already have dApps into the ecosystem, like we have a DEX, we have an NFT platform, there are people working on lending protocols and other type of DeFi-related dApp that would really benefit from having stablecoin. It was important for us to have a bridge so that we could really bring assets that don't exist natively yet on Alethium to our ecosystem. And so this is something we released the bridge almost exactly to the day a month ago.
Congrats.
And so far, so good. This is a fork of Wormhole, which is one of the most used, I think it is the most used bridge, or at least one of the bridge with the biggest TVL on chain. So that means this is also a bridge that has been thoroughly used and tested. The vulnerability are known, so that makes it easier to avoid them. So we made a fork we built on a fork of this bridge.
So I asked on Twitter, or now it's called X, and I just asked, hey, do you have any questions for Alethium? And someone asked, when Alethium and Ergo Rosenbridge?
Yeah, Ergo is really a project we really enjoy. We enjoy evolving into the same space. I think it's they're a really hard-working team, and we enjoy exchanging with them. And I think so. Ergo, I don't know if it's live. I think it was just launched live on mainnet recently, or it will be really very soon. So they also have built their own bridge called the Rosenbridge that you mentioned. And I think their first bridge will be to Cardano. I think they will first bridge to Cardano. And so it's been a while that a lot of people in our ecosystem have asked us to use this bridge so that we could have a bridge between Ergo and Alethium. And I think, again, in principle, this is definitely something we want to do eventually. But first, now we've released our bridge to Ethereum, and because it's a fork of Wormhole, for us, the easiest next step when it comes to cross-chain interoperability will be to expand this bridge, because Wormhole supports multiple chain. Right now we've done Ethereum, but it works on Binance Smart Chain, Solana, a few layer 2s, like so many other chains. So easiest in terms of work to be done, development effort needed to be done. This is the easiest. So I think that will be the first priority, but we're definitely not against working on the Rosenbridge eventually.
That's a good answer. See that? Ergonauts are going to be very happy about that.
And I mean, we have a hackathon coming soon, so that could definitely be something also that can be taken on by community members of both ecosystem if they want.
Okay, Mode, so I have a question. Let's say somebody is watching this video for the first time, they're checking out Alethium. How can they get involved more in the Alethium project?
I think the first thing maybe would be to join some of our community. I would say Discord is really our most active community of people that are there, that are really engaged. Twitter is also very active, but Twitter is more of an outward-facing network, versus Discord is more of an internal community. So I think the first step to get involved would be maybe to join Discord, Telegram to some extent, and just to get familiar with the ecosystem and the people in our community. And then there are really multiple ways. I think engaging with the community is kind of an easy one, because if you ask questions, you're maybe asking questions that someone else has, but maybe didn't dare to ask or something like this. So that's really an easy way that is beneficial for everyone, just to come join and ask any questions. But Discord will also be the place where you will see the community organize themselves and organize initiative. And there are a number of ways you can speak about what you like about the project. What you don't like is also fine. You can spread the word about, what you liked about Alethium. And then you can dive a bit deeper if you want. You can propose initiative. We have a community DAO actually that was launched recently of community members. They applied for a grant and we gave them a grant. And now they really use this grant to do a little bit more outreach and really spread the world of Alethium and spend a lot of time on this. So you could get involved with them. You could suggest them ideas. And of course, at the stage that we are in, we definitely want more developers involved. But even if you're not a developer, please feel free to join. But as a developers, it will be looking into what is being built, seeing if this is something that you want to contribute to the existing effort. It can be, looking out for bugs when we release something new. It can be proposing a new feature, contributing to a project that is being built, or, even launching your own project. We have a grant program to support you. We try to remain very available for everyone to answer any question and support them in any way they want to use and leverage the Alephium network.
You hear that, everyone watching this? Get involved, join the Discord, check them out on X, or formerly known as Twitter. I have another question. What are some upcoming things that we could look forward to with Alethium? Maybe some whatever it is for 2024, maybe even 2025.
Yeah, I think we try to do one step at a time. So definitely I will stick to 2024. I think the biggest milestone that is coming up is really the next network upgrade. That should happen early next year is kind of the target. And the main features that people have been really waiting for is block time reduction. Or block time is currently 64 seconds and it will be reduced to 16. So that's dividing by 4. That's dividing by 4. So that's really one of the, I would say that is the big things people have been talking about into our network. We, of course, I have it right in front of me, right? There are a number of other things like gasless transaction support. We also have improving endpoint to develop like kind of dApps that would be very specific to the UTXO model. So like a true peer-to-peer swap where you really have within a single transaction, you can have different people participated in the input. So in one transaction, you can really have a peer-to-peer swap. Think about all the time you want to, if you've ever tried to do OTC deals, you always wanted to use an escrow. If you have kind of this peer-to-peer swap, you don't need to, because the transaction only works if both people have verified the input. So there's a lot of things. We'll also work, I think, on one thing that we've been looking into is additional dApp prototypes that then will be hopefully picked up by members in the community to turn into a full-fledged project around lending protocols. I think that's a natural and a nice next step. And then there's a lot of little things like improving the multi-signature support, hardware wallet, better hardware wallet support. I think this is something that a lot of people are eagerly waiting for, because I think once you start having a certain amount of an asset, a lot of people feel more comfortable being able to hold them in hardware wallet.
Absolutely. I think it just got launched on Tangent, if I'm not mistaken.
I am not aware of it, but it could be, because it's permissionless, so anyone can do anything. What I know for sure that we have kind of they call it like the community integration on Ledger. So if you put your hardware wallet Ledger in developer mode, you can already kind of store your Alethium on Ledger. But this is not kind of that's kind of the first step integration, and maybe not the most user friendly. So definitely one of the next step will be to improve this and to have kind of the full traditional Ledger integration first with our wallets, and then eventually, but that's the third step with Ledger Live. And we're also looking into other hardware wallets to try and have as many options as possible for people in our ecosystem.
If it's not on Tangent and I'm wrong, look into it for me, because I like Tangent a lot, so it'd be very helpful. I gotta say, I've been using the wallet though, the desktop wallet, and I really like it. I don't know if it's considered the desktop wallet, but it's very unique. It's different.
Yeah,
I like it a lot.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think so. I think that's also something that differentiates us a little bit. Is I think we have a really strong team of 2 developers on the front end that work both on the desktop wallet and the mobile wallet, also on the Explorer. And I think they really nailed kind of user experience. I think this is something that so far we haven't heard any complaints about our wallets, and this is something that is universally loved. So we're very proud of this. And I hope it shows that we, in addition to building innovative tech, we also take the time to try and really focus on user experience, whether it is developer experience or holder experience.
Is there anything else that maybe you wish I would have asked you or you wanted to say?
Right now, I cannot think of anything. I think if this is meant to be a first introduction to Alethium, I think there's a lot here. I think if people have more questions, again, I invite you to join Discord, Telegram, and anything else we will cover. And there's a lot of information available. If you go to our Twitter or X, here you have a lot of resources to do a little bit of your own due diligence, do your own research. So here you will find kind of a master thread at the top of our page where really you will have a big dive into the tech, or tokenomics are also available publicly. So I would just invite people to do their own research, and hopefully the more they look into Alethium, the more they will like it.
Well, I like it. It's doing really well. I think it's going to continue to do well. So I'm very excited. Thank you so much, Mode, for joining me.
Pleasure.
Thank you. You're welcome on the show
Thank
anytime.
you for having me.
Thank you.
With great pleasure. Thank you very much.